All right. Welcome, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center. As soon as I find my script, I can continue this. Amazing what happens when you walk away for a week. There we go. We are a non-denominational. Oh man, I had an echo. Good. We are a non-denominational Spiritist center based in Sacramento, California, but worldly. And we respect all religions and spiritual traditions. So everyone is welcome to bring your thoughts and questions. Before we start the announcements for today, we always begin with a prayer. So I would like to ask Brother Brian to lead us in that.
Beautiful. Good morning to everyone. Dear God, we come to you now as sisters and brothers in arms on this side and the other, ready to share, ready to listen, ready to hear, ready to educate ourselves, ready to further our inner transformation. May we open ourselves up to the blessings about to be bestowed upon us. We thank you gratefully from our heart, our mind, and our soul. Let's begin today's session. So be it.
It is. Thank you, Brian. BSH is a member of the United States Spiritist Federation, and our spiritual beliefs are based around scientific, philosophical, and religious principles of Spiritism. As a manual, the spirit mentor of Chico Xavier has taught us knowledge and love are the two wings for our spiritual evolution. And that is the reason why our services on Sunday are divided into two parts. First, we always have someone speaking and sharing the findings, usually from remarkable and qualified mediums and spirits, published materials. It is really important that you participate actively by listening carefully, since your mentor is already supporting you and your needs while you are hearing these insights from the speaker. You can be carrying and working your reflections throughout the week based on what you hear today, sustaining the energies you receive from everyone. The second part of our service is then a healing process. And we'll wait to explain what that process is all about. Usually, we have a weekly series of scheduled events on all days except Friday and Saturday. And I'm going to attempt to share that right now. Every day at 6 o'clock, except for Sunday, we have a daily prayer. Everyone is welcome to attend. Everyone can bring their own thoughts. These are general prayers, specific prayers, prayers for you and family, friends, the earth at whole. On Sunday evenings, beginning at 6 o'clock, in our relationship with Divine Light, we do a book study. It's a separate link than the one we have today, so you can find it on our website. And we are currently studying the book Sex and Destiny by Andre Luis through the medium Chico Xavier. And this begins at 6 o'clock and runs for an hour and a half. On Monday nights, we have a closed meeting, if you will, after the 6 o'clock prayer. And this is for the mediums of BSH to do very focused healing services and prayerful activities. On Tuesdays, after the daily prayer at 6:30, we return to Divine Light. And we have a second book we are studying. It is The Healing and Self-Healing, a Medical Spiritist Point of View from a Dr. Andre Morera. And again, this is open to everyone. On Wednesdays, as needed, we make members available for fraternal assistance between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. So at any time, through the website, through email, through the chat session here, you can request fraternal assistance on Wednesday during these 3 hours, and one of us will be in touch with you. At 6:30, we continue a now second year of study on the book Psychology of Gratitude. And this is on this very same link that you're watching this on. On Thursdays, after the daily prayer, we continue a study on the book Living Spring. And we do a chapter of this every week. On the second Thursday of each month, in lieu of that online meeting, we then meet in person as a Spiritist group. And if you would like to know more about that in-person meeting, again, drop something in the chat window and we'll share the information for that. Friday and Saturdays are personal development days, recuperation days, preparation days, as you so see fit. Stop this share. Good. And so we now move to the speaking portion of today's meeting. And our speaker today is a wonderful soul sister, Norah Brazil, frequently seen on Kardec Radio amongst other Spiritist channels. She has been actively participating with BSH and Divine Light for a number of years now, and always brings perspective that is awesome. She is a teacher by trade. Elementary school yet.
Middle school.
Middle school, I beg your pardon. I'd forgotten. And so she brings a wonderful, youthful experience and perspective to every one of her presentations. Welcome, Norah Brazil.
Thank you, friends. I appreciate it. A little nervous. We always get the butterflies, but I was telling Miss Gina, I'm kind of sandwiched in between two amazing speakers, so the pressure is real. I'm already apologizing in advance, but it is a beautiful chapter that we're going to study. So let's keep an open heart, open mind, and I won't be able to see anyone once I share I am already sharing. So anybody want to stop me, please do, because the thing about a teacher, we can keep going. Okay. All right, dear friends. So let us get started. I have my timer. Okay. So today we're going to study this beautiful chapter, but it's very thought-provoking. Joanna of Chuza. It's from the book Good News by Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier. We know it's in the Spiritist Magazine, the English version, issue 56. So we are really there. And before we go into the actual story, just to give us some, I call it the Bible historical context, right? We know that Joanna married Chuza, and he was an influential member of the staff of Herod Antipas, which was the Roman appointed ruler of Galilee at that time. And we know that Herod, he does not have a good brand, because his kingdom was very aggressive. They were violent. They killed for power, and also they were the ones that massacred a lot of innocent children in Bethlehem when Jesus was born. So we can imagine Chuza working there. But now to turn the perspective, because we're looking into Joanna, we know Joanna of Chuza has a beautiful mission in the Bible. So the difficulties that she had, and how at the end of the class we see she turned that around to make it something really, really beautiful for her life that we till today talk about. So the first verse in the Bible that we hear Joanna and Luke, who is amazing, he's our contemporary disciple. He really writes out of the element for that time, and we thank him for that, right? In chapter 8, verses 1 through 3, we see that Joanna of Chuza is along with Jesus and the disciples, says here, the 12 were with him, and also some women who had been cured of evil spirits and diseases. Mary called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had come out, Joanna, the wife of Chuza, the manager of Herod's household, and Susanna, right, among other men. And it's interesting how these women were helping to support them out in their own means. So they were there, they were critical to the story. But what's interesting is that we can assume that Joanna was also healed. And what does this lead us to? That Joanna is instrumental in this whole piece. First, just the instance that Joanna is cured of an illness, although it's not mentioned specifically why. And, reading and listening to different talks could be because of her position, or maybe it wasn't important, right? But she experiences Jesus firsthand. I mean, these are the healings and transformations, first herself, but also being one of the followers and going with Jesus. I mean, this is something that is powerful, because Joanna is not going to be able to keep this shut off or put away or tugged away, because she was with the master, and that's a very powerful thing. And so this is critical for who she is and how she disseminates, right, during her lifetime until today. We know she is one of the incarnations of currently Joanna de Angelis. But it was interesting too that she also overcomes this very difficult expiation, because she was influential, well-connected, and wealthy, and she could have made a lot of choices, but yet she chose to support financially and even have some form of protection for Jesus in subtle ways. We can think about it that way. So she really represents a lot. Another part of the Bible that we see Joanna is in Luke chapter 24, verse 10. And it says here, it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and the others with whom told this to the apostle, right? So Jesus has resurrected, and it's a beautiful story. And as we're looking at these amazing different types of arts, and we appreciate the perspective, let us think about what this means at that time, right? To be a woman, and to have this presence around, and then to be one of the first to see this beautiful enlightenment. And we can see then, what is this awareness, right? We can already look at it like she was so ready, and that's beautiful. So we see different interpretations, but then that's the biblical part. Now we have Humberto de Campos, who's also a beautiful spirit, and he's also an author, I believe, Brazil. And he tells us this beautiful story. Now we get a more in-depth, personal account of Joanna. We can see through this chapter, as we're going to listen to it right now, Joanna worked through her journey from the time of her healing, that the Bible says, right, to following him up to his death. So just for us to keep in mind, her dialogue with Jesus, interactions with her husband, and relationship with her son, and life learning were examples of continuity, faith, and conviction within a pace that was in synchronicity of her incarnation. So that's really what we are reading about. Give me 1 second, friends. All right. So just because it's a story time, instead of us reading it, let's listen to the story. So there's a couple of variations in here. Please let me know if you can hear it. So it is about 10 minutes, but I think it's really good for us to have the sound effects and everything to really delve into her story. And this is the audio version of this. Okay. Amongst the crowd. Can we hear?
Yes.
Okay, so let us enjoy this. I hope you enjoy.
That invariably followed Jesus in his preachings at the lake. There was always a woman of rare dedication and noble character who came from Capernaum's high society. She was Joanna, the wife of Chuza, steward of Antipas in the city where vital interests of merchants and fishermen merged together. Joanna had true faith. However, she failed to secure herself from domestic sorrows because her spouse did not accept the enlightenment of the gospel. Given her intimate troubles, the noble woman searched for the Messiah at a time when he rested at Simon's house. Then, she shared with the Messiah the long litany of her hardships and sufferings. Her husband did not tolerate the doctrine of the Master. Herod's high official, who was in constant contact with the representatives of the empire, dispensed his religious preferences sometimes with either the interests of the Jewish community or with the Roman gods, which allowed him to live in easy and profitable tranquility. Joanna confessed to the master her fears, her struggles and dislikes in the domestic environment, exposing her bitterness in regard to the religious differences existent between her and her companion. After listening to her long enunciation, Jesus pondered.
Joanna, there is only one God, that is our Father. And there is only one faith in our relationship with His love. Certain religious manifestations in the world are often just popular vices in the form of external rituals. All the temples of the earth are made of stone. I come in the name of God to open the temple of living faith in the hearts of human beings. The bloodless battle of spiritual redemption begins between the sincere disciple of the gospel and the millennial errors of the world. Be thankful to the Father, for He has judged you worthy of the good work from now on. Doesn't your spouse understand your sensitive soul? He will understand you someday. Is he reckless and indifferent? Love him anyway. You wouldn't be connected to him if there was no fair reason for that. You will be fulfilling the will of God by serving him with loving dedication. You talk to me about your fears and your doubts. Based on the gospel, you should love him even more. The healthy do not need a physician. Moreover, we cannot harvest grapes in the briars, but we can cultivate the soil that produced poison thistles in order to grow there a wonderful vine of love and life.
In the soft glow of her eyes, Joanna let show the inner satisfaction that those clarifications brought to her. But revealing the true state of her soul, she asked,
Master, your word soothes my troubled spirit. However, I face extreme difficulty regarding mutual understanding at home. Wouldn't you think it right that I fight to impose your principles? In doing so, would I not be renewing my husband for heaven and your kingdom?
Christ serenely smiled and replied,
Who would face more difficulty in extending fraternal hands? Would it be the one who reached the safe boundaries of knowledge with the Father, or the one who is still struggling within the waves of ignorance or of desolation, of fickleness or indolence of the Spirit? Regarding the imposition of ideas, I ask you why God does not impose His truth and love to the tyrants of the earth? Why doesn't He strike dead the heartless conqueror spreading misery and destruction with the sinister forces of war? Heavenly wisdom does not exterminate passions, it transforms them. The one who sowed the world with corpses awakes sometimes to God through a simple tear. The Father does not impose reform on His children. He sheds light onto them at the opportune moment. Joanna, the ministry of the gospel is the collaboration with heaven in the great principles of redemption. Be faithful to God by loving your spouse in the world as if he were your son. Do not waste time discussing what is unreasonable. God does not fight battles with His children, but He works in silence, reaching all of His creation. Go. Strive in silence and, when called for clarification, speak the sweet or the energetic word of salvation according to the circumstances. Go back home and love your partner as the divine material that heaven has put into your hands so that you may whittle a piece of life, wisdom and love.
Joanna, wife of Chuza, experienced a mild relief in her heart. Addressing Jesus with a look of affectionate gratitude, she still heard his last words.
Go, my dear. Be faithful.
Since that memorable day in her life, the wife of Chuza experienced, in her soul, the constant clarity of resignation, always ready for the good work and always active to understand God. As the Master's teaching was now indelibly printed in her soul, she considered that, before being a wife on the earth, she was a daughter of that Father, in heaven, that knew her generosity and sacrifice. Her spirit shone a sacred and hidden light in everything she did. She made efforts to forget all her husband's inferior characteristics and only focused on the good ones. At the slightest opportunity, she would support the embryonic development of his faltering eternal virtues. Later, heaven sent her a little boy whose presence doubled her work. However, she never forgot Jesus' recommendations on faithfulness, and she turned her pain into a silent hymn of triumph every day.
Dear Master, I come before you today, humbly seeking your strength and guidance. Life can be challenging, but I know that in you, I can find the strength to face any difficulty that comes my way. You are my rock and my fortress. I know that I can find refuge in you, that I can find solace in your presence. So be it.
Years went by and Joanna's persevering efforts multiplied her assets of faith in the arduous march of knowledge and life. Political persecution shattered the way of life of her companion. Joanna, however, remained firm. Tortured by hateful ideas of revenge and insolvent debts, by hurt vanity, and by diseases that corroded his body, the former quartermaster of Antipas returned to the spiritual plane in a stormy night of shadows. His wife, however, endured the bitterest disappointments, faithful to her divine ideals built on sincere trust. Pressed by tough needs, the noble woman of Capernaum sought after work to make ends meet with the little boy that God had entrusted to her.
Joanna, we can't believe you're working.
Where's your God?
Friends, Jesus worked, callousing his hands with the saws of a modest profession in carpentry. I will continue to devote and submit myself to Christ, as a devoted servant.
Filled with sincere joy, the widow of Chuza forgot the comfort of the material nobility. She devoted herself to the children of other mothers. She busied herself with the most menial household chores so that her little boy had bread. Later, when the snow of the experiences of the world colored in white the first waves of hair on her forehead, a Roman galley took her as a humble servant. In the year 68, when the persecutions of Christians were intensifying, we find, in one of the recurring spectacles of the circus, an old disciple of the Lord tied to the pole of martyrdom next to a young man, who was her son. Before the clamor of the people, the first floggings were ordered.
Abjure!
Exclaims an executioner carrying out his imperial orders with a grim and gloomy look. But the former disciple of the Lord contemplates the sky without a word of complaint or of denial. Then the lash flutters over the half-naked boy who tearfully exclaims,
Repudiate Jesus, my mother. Do you not see we lost it all? Abjure! For me, who is your son?
For the first time, the eyes of the martyr had become an abundant spring of tears. The son's solicitations were swords of anguish that shredded her heart.
Abjure! 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 Mother!
Joanna heard those cries while recalling her whole existence. The cheery and festive home, the hours of bliss, the domestic troubles, the maternal emotions, her husband's failures, his despair and his death, her widowhood, her grief and the toughest demands. Then, before the desperate pleas of her little boy, she recalled that Mary had also been a mother. Seeing her Jesus crucified on the cross of infamy, Mary learned to abide to the divine designs. Above all her memories, the most supreme joy of her life was still when she heard the Master in Peter's house, saying,
Go, daughter. Be faithful.
So, taken by superhuman strength, the widow of Chuza contemplated the first bloody victim. And, addressing the young boy with a deep and inexpressible gaze, in her pain and tenderness, she firmly said,
Be quiet, my son. Jesus was pure and did not disdain the sacrifice. Let us know how to suffer in the painful hour, because, above all transient happiness of the world, we must be faithful to God.
At that time, to the delirious applause of the people, the executioners set fire onto the firewood soaked in flammable resin around her. Within moments, the flames licked her aged body. Joanna, wife of Chuza, serenely contemplated the crowd of people who did not understand her sacrifice. The muffled groans of pain died in her oppressed chest. The executioners of the martyr surrounded her with insults.
Has your Christ only taught you how to die?
Asked one of the executioners. Focusing on her resilience, the old disciple still had the strength to whisper,
Not just to die, but also to love you.
At that moment, she felt that the comforting hand of the Master gently touching her shoulder, and she heard the loving and unforgettable voice.
Joanna, take heart. I am here.
Amongst
All right, friends. So give me 3 seconds. What a beautiful story, right? Very impactful and wow. Imagine just being there. So hopefully we got a a glimpse of a little bit of what it was. It's worth a movie. So thanks the mentors for that beautiful construction of work for us to conceptualize. So we could take this story in so many ways, honestly. These were just a couple of dots. Like, for sure, Joanna is that Christian faith. We saw it and heard it through that whole story. Her female role as a Christian woman or a spiritist now, and what that means. We could even take this whole study into the untold story revealed. Like, what is it about now that we're ready to hear her story that we only got 2 verses in the Bible, right? But there's 2 really beautiful points that we can take away today, which is one, the spiritual healing process and journey that she shares with us, and not advice from Jesus, are the 2 points that we are going to connect to. Keeping track of my time. So let's think a little bit about this journey that we're talking about. We actually are getting the biological, the emotional intelligence, and the spiritual all in one, right? The first biological healing, of course, is that she gets healed. We don't know what it is, but at that time in the Bible, when it said that the demons were taken out of someone or there was evil spirits, it was because medical science was still not updated like we have the terms today. So they would just say that happened, but we know today that there was a biological healing. So that's one part of her journey. Of course, the emotional intelligence that she actually progresses through the story, right? Because we see in the beginning, she approaches Jesus with her questions. And at the end, she even had the tranquility and the peace to say, it is not to die, but to love you. That is powerful. So she works, or teaches us rather, on love, self-esteem, right? On her relationships that we got to see, forgiveness, communication. She had to be open-minded and tolerant of the different religious beliefs that her and her husband Chuza had. She needed to empathize constantly and to stay calm in all of this. But what's so interesting too now is looking at this from a spiritism perspective. And we have the book by Andre Luis, Evolution into Worlds, that actually talk about the vital centers, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about, just to think outside the box and have a different perspective as we're going through Joanna de Chuza's life. So let us focus right now on the first part, which is the spiritual healing process and her journey, right? So we go back to this, and just a quick reminder, friends, this is one perspective of many. There's loads of possibilities. So this is something just for us to think about, right? Because we know Humberto de Campos is offering this spiritism healing. So we want to start to add to this on top of the Christianity version. Let's start thinking, where does spiritism come in? And Andre Luis talks about these vital centers, right? In the book Evolution to Worlds, is chapter 2. We have the crown, right? We have the cerebral, this is how he names them, the throat, the cardiac, the splenic, which is actually over here, but it could be like the solar that we know plexus that we have today, the gastric, and the reproductive centers. So let us look into it. If we look at the story, we actually get a whole healing map from the beginning, where Joanna was asking these questions, and at the end, we just get such a very spiritually healed and mature Joanna. So why don't we take it and just be creative with the process and go in it from bottom, top, trying to follow the story with an open mind, friends. So the first thing that we have here at bottom is our instinct, right? Security and survival. And just for us to know this, the yellow orange color is the text from the story, and the purple down here is the way Andre tells us in the book. It says here, but revealing the true state of her soul, she asked, Master, your word suits my troubled soul. However, I face extreme difficulty. So again, right here, we start to see, right, that Joanna knows that God is talking to her soul, but she's still not there. Her concerns are really coming from that instinct, from that survival, that she's having difficulties at home, right? And then we move up. We have this second chakra, right? The passions and the creativity. or the gastric, as Andre tells us, right? And in the verse it says here, she failed to secure herself from domestic sorrows because her spouse did not accept the enlightenment of the gospel. So if we were to really think about this from a healing perspective, her energy in this was very stagnant. She wasn't really able to create because she felt like she couldn't move forward, right? So we can imagine when she comes to Jesus, she's really in those bottom, she really needs some healing in those bottom chakras, right? And as we move forward with the story, and our third and beautiful or vital point is the solar plexus or the splenic in the book, which is associated with personal power, self-esteem, confidence, and structure. And this one was very, very critical for her. And I think we could even add here being a woman at that time and how she must have felt, right? Because women at that time were seen like they couldn't do much, right? They were just sort of stuck to the house. But since the beginning, there was a really beautiful message for Joanna, which was, be thankful to the Father, for he has judged you worthy of the good work from now on. So there was something really special for her to keep working this energy. And more beautiful, just to paraphrase this for time, when her husband passes and she has to work, that is the time when she really found herself. And even the way she responds, right, to like her friends, like, you're not supposed to work. She's like, no, I am. We can make an inference that when she was in that state of constantly working, she was really seeing her self-worth. She is no longer just the wife of Chuza. She is a woman who is here with a purpose to do something good, right? And we see glimpses of her really working this energy. It says, in the soft glow of her eyes, Joanna let show the inner satisfaction of those clarifications brought to her. And those clarifications means the answers. So this is in the beginning when she was telling Jesus and Jesus was responding what to do. She already was igniting that. So we know that chakras and centers and energy, they're not stagnant, it's fluid, and something was messing with her, mixing inside of her and making her move. And what's beautiful is this praise that also says, would it be the one who reached the safe boundaries of knowledge with the Father, or the one who is still struggling within the waves of ignorance or desolation, of fickleness or indolence of the spirit? This idea of having boundaries and understanding the difference. Where do I want to be? Do I want to be on this side or the other? She's already working that self-esteem and that confidence to trust herself and to do the meditations, to do the work, and to pray to manifest that energy. And then we have the low chakra, the cardiac, that vital center in the Audrey's book. And this one was huge. I mean, if anything, the whole story, it's all her working in this love, this compassion, this forgiveness, right? And just for us to have context of the text, right? This is where Jesus says, go back home and love your partner as the divine material that heaven has put into your hands so that you may whittle a piece of life, wisdom, and love. So this concept that Jesus was already telling Joanna, divine material, this is way beyond the materialistic love, right? He says here, be faithful to God by loving your spouse in the world as if he were your son. So there is no, we can say, separation of love. This is my husband and this is it, right? This is this, right? Love him in different ways. Open up that compassion of yours. And it's based on the gospel. You should love him even more. But what's so beautiful too, and this is beautiful, and that is Joanna de Angelis today, but of course Joanna de Cruz at that time, is that humanistic aspect of it. Because in this story, we do get Joanna doubting, or we get her chakras like moving back and forth. Where it says here, Joanna experienced a mild relief in her heart. That means whatever Jesus said, it tickled there. it moves, right? Or here, the son's solicitations were sorts of anguish that shredded her heart. So this is to indicate for us that this part, it's constantly, we feel things are happening, but we just need to center ourselves to the point where she says her last words in this incarnation were not just to die, but also to love you. So she got this sublime message towards the end that love is more than just here on earth, right? Then we have this chakra, which is the throat chakra, self-expression, speak her truth, work on communication. And it's so interesting, friends, and this is just perspective. It seems like the more we go into Joanna de Chuza's life later in her years as she keeps working, and also the higher we go up at these different energy levels, Jesus is the one that's really talking more, right? Because he's trying to like feed that energy. In other words, for instance, he says, go, strive in silence, and when called for clarification, speak the sweet or the energetic word of salvation according to the circumstances. Energetic words, right? Because we know that words carry energy, and Jesus is already telling her to work with this, right? You talk to me about your fears and your doubts, but do not waste time discussing what is unreasonable. Keep working this, bro. At the end, it says here, still had the strength to whisper. She turned her pain into a silent hymn. And then even here, when her friends were making fun of her and she had to work, she tried to explain to them that Jesus, right? So we see the different stages and the different ways that Joanna de Chuza was teaching us through God's learnings as well, how to work this. As we get higher, this is our intuition, our cerebral vital center. It is associated with intuition, wisdom, and spiritual insight. And these are the beautiful moments that we capture from the story, right? And it's interesting because a lot of these are already towards the end in that scene, her last moments where we really get to see this center activate. It says here, since that memorable day in her life, the wife of Chuza experienced in her soul the constant clarity of resignation, always ready for the good work and always active to understand God. So this understanding God was a beautiful purpose that was in her. As we continue, as this master's teachings was now indelibly printed in her soul, she considered that before being a wife on earth, she was the daughter of that father. So she knew that she was just, again, more than Joanna, the wife of Chuza, or Joanna, the disciple. She was a child of God with this purpose, but she had to understand and constantly keep looking. Let's continue. Her spirit shone a sacred and hidden light in everything she did. Again, this light hinting to us, right, that these are the things that we want to start to visualize now, us in this. You wouldn't be connected to him if there was no for reason for that. This is regarding her husband. So she needs to understand her relationship with her husband. This is not just, we have two different religions, two beliefs, right? There's more to it. And Jesus sends her to work on this. She made efforts to forget all her husband's inferior characteristics and only focused on the good ones, right? And she forgot the comfort of the material nobility. Instead, she devotes herself to the children of other mothers. So she got it. She understood that these were the things that were going to keep moving her forward. And to our last center, the most beautiful one, right? They're all beautiful, but this one's special. Of course, we know this is at the top, and in the book here, recommend to read because Andre goes a little bit more in detail how that helps and the spirits communicate through us, right? But this one here, it's really like her last minutes of life, right? That she was really connected. And looking at this into context, like this was so important for her. She really needed this because it allowed the spirits to come in, right? We're all mediums. So she has this already in her and she needed that support. She needed those mentors to help. And how did this happen? Well, first, it says here that she caught like a vision of Mary, who also saw Jesus crucified. So we can imagine her seeing her son and Mary working with this. The spirits were able to just give her this vision. I mean, how many of us would be able to do that? So this was a very divine, right? We know that most of us are, if we are about to die, we would be in this flight or fight state, right? But she wasn't. So we know she was really up there in the crown chakra. It says here, above all her memories, the most supreme joy of her life was when she heard the master, "Go, daughter, be faithful." Now she's hearing things. So so this is so important, because these words that are coming into her this time are important. And just how she was able to talk to her son, "Be quiet, my son." Jesus was pure and did not disdain the sacrifice. Let us know how to suffer in the painful hour, because above all transient happiness of the world, we must be faithful to God. So she was already feeling, right? Maybe we can infer she was in this state already, even though as physically here we see it in her centers that were activated, she was feeling God already. And what's beautiful, it says here, Joanna contemplated the crowd who did not understand her sacrifice. This is purpose for us, because nobody, just us, we know our path. We're not here to make others understand our path. And Joanna understood that. Maybe her son didn't understand. Maybe people around her would think, what are you doing? But she knew her path. And so because she was connecting the consciousness, right, with the divine light to know where she needed to go, right? And when she says not just to die, but also to love you, we can see she's already very enlightened in this state. And the most beautiful moment was the last part, where it says, at that moment, she felt the comforting hand of the master gently touching her shoulder. And she heard the loving and unforgettable voice, "Joanna, take heart, I am here." This was a 10D experience, friends. She was already pretty much feeling the flames. So she feels the master, hears, sees everything, experiences. So that right there is divine. And I think what's so beautiful as we finalize with this aspect, we see the progressions and we see how it took her a lifetime, one incarnation, right? Just that one. But we see both her imperfections and her parts where she was struggling, her sincerity, and the other parts. And that's all it took. It was her intention and her willingness to spiritually heal, to move forward, right? And so for us today is to think, where do I stand in all of that? I think another part, let me check the time, we're good. The other time is the advice from Jesus. And this one will go real quick, because we must, this is a Jesus story too with Joanna. They're both intertwined, because what he says is so beautiful, and it's a lot like what we study today in Spiritism. Like, for instance, this part where he says, certain religions manifest, let's say, temples with rituals that are made of stone, right? But I come in the name of God to open the temple of living faith in the heart of human beings, right? So we know this as Spiritists. This is our whole premise, that faith is eternal. And that is the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, parts 1 through 4. From part 1 with the first causes, the spirit world, the moral laws, the hopes and consolations. That is a constant work in us, that we understand everything is inside of us to keep moving forward. The second thing was a very interesting phrase that he says, we cannot harvest grapes in the briars, but we can cultivate the soil that produced poison thistles in order to grow there a wonderful vine of love and life. So in other words, love is a seed, right? In the Gospels, chapter 12, love your enemies. We have a whole chapter that helps us to understand, and the Spirit says love is in context. But one interesting phrase says, the way of seeing things is different because they consider both the past and the future, between which their present life is only a dot. So understanding this, and even Joanna, what Jesus was trying to help her, right? And It's only one dot. It's one thing. And it's going to keep moving forward. And in the Spirit says, if we keep saying thank you for the relationships or the troubled situations, eventually that is transformed into gratitude and therefore into forgiveness. And this is a beautiful lesson for us. So it has nothing to do with trying to be in a toxic relationship. That's not the point. The idea is how to navigate a difficult situation with love. And the last thing is that he says, I ask why God does not impose his truth and love to the tyrants of the earth. Why doesn't he strike death, the heartless conqueror, spreading misery and destruction, right? Because it says heavenly wisdom does not exterminate, it transforms. This is the whole premise of us too, again, right? Transformation and free will. In the book Heaven and Hell, chapter 7, the penal code of the future life, there's 33 articles, highly recommend, but we can deduct and say and summarize and put it all together. To each according to his or her own deeds. This is the law of divine justice. So by Joanna, and maybe us too, if we feel aligned to this message, right? Seeing that everybody has their own journey, be patient, and just the way we want to be understood, just the way that we are also in this, we have to be in that place for our brothers, our sisters, or those around us, and everything. And that, and this divine justice, this law of divine justice will take care of everything. So to end, this is the final phrase, right? It says, Joanna, take heart, I am here. We can imagine, dear friends, us too having this experience and feeling this, right? How Jesus says, Hagina, take heart, I am here. Kalia, take heart, I am here. Charles, take heart, I am here. Robbie, take heart, I am here. Mark, take heart, I am here. Brian, take heart, I am here. Sunshine, take heart, I am here. Eli, take heart, I am here. Sonia, take heart, I am here. Tanya, take heart, I am here. Kathy, take heart, I am here. Vinicius, take heart, I am here. Nora, take heart, I am here. Can you imagine the Master telling us this, friends? Well, things would be so much better. All right, that was today's lesson. Thank you.
Wow, Nora. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was nice. You know,
Habu.
it's really wonderful. You know, it's always a good reminder that our hardship and our pain, regardless to whether it's physical or whether it's with our family and friends, that it's not for no reason. It's not for no reason. I admired her, you know, and her fortitude with her husband. You know, someone that's really close and near and dear to you, who's a bit of a tyrant, you know, but still, you know, if it's a lesson in there that you have to work through, you know, it's still hard, but she did it. There's always somebody showing us their strength. You know, I thank God for that. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura, I loved it. I feel a glow through your words, your energy, and the beautiful chapter. And Joanna, it's my most favorite chapter of the whole book. And what a blessing that you were able to do it. I also loved the bridge you built to the chakras, because not only did it help us to understand the chakras in a new way, but also understanding the story in a new way, and also helping us to reflect back. At least that's what I'm doing. It's like a progression, right? She was younger and she started more in the root chakra. And as she got older, to her moment of discarnation, she moved up the ladder, so to speak. And so I kind of really, I want to look at myself and see, because, you know, I mean, her final moment was just gorgeous. The vision she had, the bigger picture, and then finally being able to love an enemy, right? I mean, that's like the ultimate we can do. Yeah. Oh, it was wonderful. Thank you so much, Norah. And I had a quick question. Which Spiritist Magazine edition is it in? Because it's not on my list.
56.
56. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for this beautiful talk. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well,
Nicole,
again,
go
no
ahead,
surprise.
Charles.
I'm sorry, Mark. No surprise that you always impressed us with your careful preparation for the presentation. Very kind of you for you to do that. And this lesson today just reminds me that we see these stories reflecting the timing of Jesus, so like 2,000 years ago. What if we apply that today, 2023? How is this applying? Because that's the question. We tend to go into this trip of visiting Jesus in 2,000 years ago, but today is still very vivid. The lessons applies today, and not just for a sensitive woman towards a hard man, but also could be the reverse, right? A sensitive man toward a hardened woman, because the example is present in our daily lives. I really appreciate you, Nora. Thank you.
Or man to man or woman to woman. Right?
There you go. Yes, that's right. Yes.
Spirit to spirit.
Very good. Thank you.
You know, Nora, you always bring fresh eyes to a perspective. And I love that. I just love, you pointed out something to me that I've read this story so many times. I've seen all the films, and there it isn't fresh in your face. At that time, it was only women that went into the tomb. I never even realized the impact of what that meant, let alone who those women were. And so in that moment when she reflects on what Mary went through and how Mary persevered, my goodness, like I said, how many times I've heard this story, how many times I've watched the tomb unveiled. I never even grasped the concept of the importance of them being all female. My goodness. Thank you so much.
Well, Nora, you always surprise us. It's amazing. I could not put that together like you did with using the chakras, the center of force, bringing into the spiritism, no? Because back on the time when we talk about teaching about chakras was like a taboo. Wow, you're teaching new age things. But we see how careful André Luiz brought to us, that is already here, no? And you was very on your wisdom and to putting that together, because that one things we do not pay attention the most, like Sunshine said, we start here on the base, because we did come into the world, no? So we forgot that we are living here on the material world, and most of us, no, want to concentrate on the top, forget to live the present and now. So that you call our attention. I have a lot of homework, a lot of notes here, and one on the aspect of the like Brother Mark brought, and to that time we see the importance of the women to manifest God's love on earth, bringing Jesus to this dimension as Mary did, now saying yes to God's love. And we will see here too that time Emmanuel, when he was Poblulentus, his wife Livia was was going to the tombs and together with the great women of that time. So on the other hand here, how many times we are not strong enough to continue our battles, to continue our evolution. It's not just a husband and wife, but even with the closer to us, the difficulties one that God put in our life, and how many times we just give up on them. Because here's a beautiful lesson of strength, no? Of obedience. Remember, she went to Jesus, complained, hoping that Jesus would say, okay, leave him. Now leave him, come and follow me. And I will protect you. No. The message was even strong than what she could imagine. And then we see the obedience of Joanna to Jesus, the obedience of Joanna to God's law. That's what she's showing, that that is it. That's what I have to do. And he did amazingly. She took care of him. He got sick. No money. She has to work to survive. He passed away. And she has a son that she had to continue work, because on the other books that I even told you I would send you some in Portuguese, I have not found the book. I was reading the book. It's called Harmony from Sueli Caldas Schuster. And she brings that in, Givaldo gave to her to bring that in, like she was talking about, like you did today in one chapter of Joanna. I will pass you as soon as I find. And they said he was sick and create a lot of problem, and he was left behind from the politics situation at that time. So they got very poor, sick, and she has to work in supporting him until he passed, and then have to support her son. And bravely, she was there back in Italy for what the stories say. And when she continued in the 68 years, 68 years after, and she was one of the great teachers, disciples of Jesus. Because let me put it that way, she met Jesus, she followed Jesus, and she was considered one of his disciples too. So she was teaching about the first Christians. She was a teacher, bringing hope. So we could not expect any more from her than obedience for what she was teaching on of Jesus' life. And we see here her heart broken when the son asked her, now negate him. Negate him, please. No, she was so sad that in that moment of the cross, he didn't understand the lesson. I think that was the pain of her soul. That's all the sacrifice, because she had been teaching him for all these years, no? And all the sacrifice, he has not learned the lesson. So brilliantly, lovingly, she brought that message to not just to him, but to those who was there in the moment of her sacrifice. We as spiritists in Brazil, in connection with John of God, not John of God, with Valdo Franco, completely different thing, and connect with Valdo Franco. The history is that Joana de Angelis, mentor of Givaldo, is the reincarnation of a Joana de Cusa. And Givaldo Franco is the son of Joana de Cusa at that time. And we will see the story of Santa Clara and Francisco of Assisi, and I think it's the Fray Leon. And the Fray Leon, come and again, the reincarnation of Divaldo, Santa Clara, Joanna de Chuza, and together with Saint Francis of Assisi. So in that beautiful message again, come Joanna de Angelis, in this lifetime that we are in right now. And we have a beautiful letter from Francis of Assisi through Chico Xavier to Divaldo Franco. A beautiful letter, psychographed to Divaldo in his young age through Chico Xavier, talking about like this time for him to embrace Jesus, to embrace the teachings and through this sacrifice for life that he was going through, because Divaldo was in his early 20s when St. Francis psychographed that letter to him through Chico Xavier. So already telling him that all the process, the sacrifice that he was going through to unite, to disseminate his spirit, the new, the good news into the world in this time of his life. And he has done this bravely, and we could not expect from a mentor like Joanna de Angelis how dedicated she still is to her son. So what a beautiful, thanks so very much. I just want to add that a little bit for us to meditate and evaluate that God is with us. His love is with us through all these great teachers and masters, and through you too today, that bring more clarity to our minds and peace to our hearts. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Any other thoughts?
Really, really well done. God bless you.
Okay, let's take a short
No.
break. Brian, do you want to speak? Say something?
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to, but
Go
the
ahead.
coffee grinder was working in the background. It's off now. Norah, thank you so much for your presentation. I myself received a chakra cleansing and healing from it, so I am grateful for your voice that is healing in many ways. Thank you.
We thank the spirits for a different take.
Beautiful. Okay, let's take